So in this video, I'm going to go over the practice and review for our Mock 8 Quiz 3. So if I can get to the second page, that is. Okay, so here it says use the graphs of f of x, g of x, and h of x to answer questions 1 through 3. Okay, so what we're going to do is this first one says h of 4. So our h graph is green, so I'm going to go ahead and say h of 4 like this, h of 4. Okay. So we're going to go out here 1, 2, 3, 4, and notice we intersect the h graph, right? And what is our y value when we intersect it at 0? So h of 4 is equal to 0, and that's probably the hardest one for most of y'all to get, okay? Now, once we get that 0, we're then going to put it in our f graph, okay? So it's going to be f of 0. So our output for our first one, our h of 4, is going to be our input for our second one. So now we're looking at 0, okay? So actually, let's go ahead and do this the color it is, which is blue up here. So we're going to do f of 0, right? So at 0, where do we intersect our f of x graph? It's right there. And what is that value right there? That's 2, right? So that's our answer, okay? So 2 was our answer, okay? So now on the next one is g of f of 1. So I like to rewrite these because I don't really like that notation. So I just say g of f of 1. Okay, so we're going to do our f of 1 first. And that was our blue graph. So f of 1. I'm going to go ahead and erase these so we don't get any confusion. Okay, so our f of 1. So again, we're looking at our x value. That's our input, the x, right? So we're going to go up to our graph and see where it intersects. And then we're going to our output, which is our y value. So that's 1 right there, that's 2, that's 3. So our f of 0 is going to be 3, and then we're going to put that in our g of x graph, right? So our g of x graph is red. So I'm going to say g of 3, right? So g of 3, so I'm counting 1, 2, 3, because those are our x values, those are our inputs, right? So we're going to go up to our graph right here and see where it intersects the graph, and then over to our y value. So notice that's 1 more than our 3, so that's 4 right there. So our g of 3 is 4, and that's our answer. So the answer was C. Okay, so the next one is the h of g of negative 5. So again, I'm going to rewrite this, h of g of negative 5. So our g graph, we're going to go g of negative 5, right? G of negative 5. So once again, I'm going to erase what I had up here so there's no confusion. So we're going to go over here to negative 5 now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's negative 5. We're going to go up to our g graph, which is our red graph, right there where we intersect it. Then we're going over to our output, which is our y value, right? So that's 1, 2 right there. So that's, when we do g of negative 5, that's 2. And then we're going to put that value into our h graph, right? So our h graph is green, so I'm going to do that green. H of our 2. So again, we're going 1, 2, that's our input, down to our graph right there, and then over again to our x value. So that's 0 up there, so that's negative 1 right there. So this is going to be negative 1. And that is our answer for that part. So this next direction says use the following functions to answer question 4 and 5. Okay, so it says evaluate h of g of negative 2. So remember, we're always going to work from the inside out. So we're going to do our g of negative 2 first. So g of negative 2, so we're going to take our g of x function here, and we're going to do our 4, and we're going to put our negative 2 in for our x. So that's 4 divided by negative 2, which is negative 2. Now we're going to take that value, and we're going to put in our h function, right? So we're going to say h of negative 2. So we're going to put negative 2 in for every x. So we're going to say 3 times negative 2 squared plus 1. So that's going to be 3 times. Remember, we always do our exponent first because of PEMDAS. Parenthesis exponent multiplication, right? So negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And so isn't that going to be 12? 3 times 4 is 12 plus 1. And so that's actually going to be 13. Okay? So that's our answer for number 4. All right, number 5 says evaluate f of h of negative 1. So I'm going to again rewrite this, f of h of negative 1, okay? So here we're going to do our f function. So our f function up there is this one, right? So, but we're going to do our h first. We're going to do h of negative 1. So we're going to go h of negative 1, right? So what is our h function? It's 3 times, we're going to put that -1 in for that x. -1 squared plus 1. So this is going to be 3 times -1 times -1 is 1, right? So that's going to be 3 times 1, which is 3. So that's 3 plus 1, which equals 4. Okay, now we're going to take that 4 and we're going to put it in our f function. Okay, so our f function is the green one up there on the left. Up here, this is our f function. So we're going to say f of our output from our original one, which was 4. And f of 4, so we're going to put the 4 in there. So this would be 5 times, or 5 minus 2 times 4, right? So that's going to be 5 minus 8, which is what? -3, right? And that was one of our answer choices. That was B, okay? All right, so on this next one, it says use the following functions to answer questions 6 and 7. So this says rewrite the composition function g of h of x in terms of x. So we want to take our h of x function. If you notice, this is on the inside and the g is on the outside. So we're going to take this function right here and we're going to put it in the x of that function. So we're going to put it right there. So we're going to say 5 times x squared minus 5 plus 1. So notice we put the h of x in for the x of the g of x, okay? So now we're just distributing, aren't we? So we're going to say 5x squared minus 25, and then we got our plus 1. So we can combine these like terms right here. So it's going to be 5x squared minus 24. That's our answer, okay? All right, so the next one says which expression is equivalent to f of g of x? So here again, I'm going to rewrite this to f of g of x. Okay, so we're going to take the g of x function. So I'm going to erase this up here and we're going to talk through it up here, okay? We're going to take the g of x function, which is this one right here, and we're going to put it in our f of x function. So this time we're putting that in that x right there, okay? So we're going to say 10 times 5x plus 1. So now we're just distributing that 10, right? 10 times 5x is 50x. 10 times 1 is 10. So that was D. All right, so now this is our review, guys. That stuff right there was just practice of stuff we've recently done, and now this is our review. So it says use the graph to answer 1 through 3, okay? So this says, what is the domain and range of the graph? So the very first thing I want to do is find the endpoint of this graph, okay? So that's 1, 2, 3. So that's -3, right? Right there, y'all? And then this is 1, 2. So that's -2. So this point right here, which is the starting point of our graph, is -3, -2. Now that's going to be in our domain and range, those terms. Our x and y, which are also h and k, right? So let's look at what direction this graph is pointing. So the graph is pointing to the right. So it means that we're headed towards infinity over here, right? And we're also headed, so when we head towards the right, is the graph going to get bigger or smaller? Our x value is getting bigger or smaller as we go, as we start our graph. They are getting bigger, right? And down here, where's it headed? Isn't it headed towards negative infinity for our range? So our domain is headed towards positive infinity, but our range is headed towards negative infinity, right? So now let's talk about our domain and range. Now notice all of our x values are -3 and all of our y values are -2. What we want to talk about now is what's happening. So our x values are getting bigger. Do y'all see that? Because they're going to the right. So that means that can't be true and that can't be true. These two are our domain, okay? Now, what's happening to our y values, though? So our y values, aren't they going down? So our y values are going down, so they're getting smaller, aren't they? So that's going to be a less than symbol, right? So it can't be greater than there, so that's why our answer is C. Now, the next one says, which statement is true about our end behavior? Okay, so once again, we're going to talk about positive and negative infinity. Okay, so we got positive infinity over here, and we got negative infinity over here, right? At the top, we have positive infinity. At the bottom, we have negative infinity. So this says, as x, these are our x values right up here, right? As x approaches this way, what's happening to our y values here, y'all? Where are they headed? negative infinity, right? So this one is false. Okay, then the next one says, as we head again towards positive infinity right here, so we're headed to the right again, what's happening to the y values? Yep, they're headed towards negative infinity. Now, as we head towards negative infinity for our x values, so now we're headed this direction on the graph, what's happening to our y values? Well, they're definitely not at -3. This would have been -2, right? So that's wrong as well. As we head towards negative infinity, it also doesn't go on to negative infinity, does it? No, because that was, so this is true, and that was our true, one and only true statement was B right there, okay? Then it talks about the interval of increase and decrease. So what we want to do when we're talking about intervals, guys, so you want to jump on the graph at the left and write it. Is it going up or down? Yes, it's going down. So it's going to be an interval of decrease. There's not going to be an interval of increase, okay? Where did it start? Where did the graph start? At -3. So we're going to put a bracket over there. And then where did it go to? Where's this headed over here for our x values, y'all? To infinity, isn't it? So that is our interval of decrease. It's from -3. Remember, we're talking x values here, on to infinity, okay? All right, so here's our next one. Given the equation 1/3 square root of 2 times x plus 1, which answer choice describes transformations that occurred? So let's talk about this 1/3. What does the 1/3 tell us? Isn't that a vertical, what? Shrink by 1/3. Okay, now what does this 2 tell us right here, y'all? 2. That is a horizontal, what? And remember, we're going to change this because it's under that radical. Remember what I told you guys? That underneath that radical, it's like when you walk in your house and somebody had a bad attitude, everything changes underneath there. And we can't go up or down underneath there because it has a ceiling. Okay, so this is a horizontal what? This is going to be a shrink. And remember, we're changing this to what? 1/2, okay? And then remember, everything under there changes. So what happens with this right here? It becomes a -1, right? So what would a -1 mean? Left 1. Remember, it's horizontal change underneath that radical, right? So it's left or right. Can't go up or down because we have a ceiling. So let's see which one of these matches. Vertical shrink by a factor of 1/3. Vertical shrink by, yes. This one is not, though. That's not true, okay? Then we have a horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/2. Horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/2. Horizontal stretch, nope, that's not a stretch and not a stretch, right? Then what do we have? 1 left. So we have 1 unit left, 1 unit right. So that's not true. So that was my answer right there. So go through every single thing, guys. That's the way to ensure that you're getting the correct answer, okay? All right, number 5 says Jennifer was told to write an equation that showed a reflection over the x-axis. So that means we're going to have a negative where? Out front, right? Okay, and then we got our radical. It says a horizontal stretch by a factor of 1/4. So this is horizontal. And if it's a stretch, remember, we're going to do the opposite under here, right? And then shifted horizontally 5 units to the right. So here again, we're doing the opposite. 5 right would be plus, right? So this is going to be minus. And then I didn't see anything about up or down. So the first one says, so is this the same equation that's written right here? Well, obviously the answer is no. So it says no because the equation shows a reflection over the y-axis. That's not true. So it's not that one. No, because the equation shows a horizontal compression by a factor of 1/4. That's true, right? Because you all notice what's different? That's different than what I have over here, right? No, because the equation shows a shift horizontally 5 units. So that's not true either. And obviously it's not yes. Okay, so I do that just to ensure that my answer was correct, okay? All right, number 6. Solve this. So what do we do first? We're going to subtract 12 from both sides, okay? So that's going to give us x minus 9 to the 1/3 power equals 3. Now, how do we get rid of a 1/3 power? Yes, we do the reciprocal. So we take it to the 3rd power, right? So now that's all gone, and this is going to be x minus 9 equals 3 to the 3rd. 3 times 3 is 9, times another 3 is 27. Then we're going to do what? Add 9 to both sides. So x equals 36. And I can check this answer, and you should. So if I put 36 up here, 36 minus 9 is 27. 27 to the 1/3 power, guess what that is? That's 3. And 12 plus 3 equals what? 15. So check it when you can, okay? So on this next one, it says solve. So what we want to do on this one is we want to what? Get rid of the square root. So we're going to square both sides. That's going to be my first step, okay? Square both sides. So that's going to get rid of my square root, right? So I get 88 minus 12x. Now remember, we're going to use the box method here to remember how to do this. Now some of y'all might remember how to do this the shortcut, but I'm just going to show you how to use the box. Anytime you're squaring a binomial, you want to use the box to make sure that you're doing it correctly. So this is x squared minus 10x minus 10x and 100, right? Do y'all see those like terms right here? Me too. So we're going to set that equal to our what? Excuse me, this is going to be x squared minus 20x plus 100. Now what do I do next? Move everything to the right. So we're going to subtract the 88 and we're going to add 12x. Okay, so now that's gone and that's gone. I got 0 over here. And I've got x squared, negative 12, negative 20 plus 12. Isn't that going to be negative 8x, y'all? And then 88 from 100 is going to be, I think that's 12, isn't it? Let me see if I got this. Yes, it is. So plus 12. Okay, so now we want to factor this, right? So what are the factors? Think of the factors, y'all, of 12 that add up to be negative 8. They're both going to be negative, obviously, right? So we got the square root of x squared is x and x, right? So what are the factors of 12 that add up to be negative 8? Wouldn't that be minus 2 and minus 6? So we're going to set each of these equal to 0. So this is x equals 2, and this is x equals 6, right? Now, what must we do with these? Because we can't use Desmos on this quiz, y'all. Okay, so we got to check these. Okay, so we're going to put them back up in there. So I'm going to put a line in between here, and I'm going to check them both, okay? So I'm going to do 88 minus 12 times 2. And does that equal 2 minus 10? So this is going to be 88 minus 24. That equals negative 8. So that's going to be the square root of 64 equals negative 8. Does the square root of 64 is 8, right? Does 8 equal negative 8? Nope. So that's not a solution, y'all. Okay? This one right here is not a solution. All right, so let's try the x equals 6 now. So this is going to be 88 minus 12 times 6. And that's going to be equal to 6 minus 10. So that's going to be the square root of 88 minus 72 equals negative 4. Because 6 minus 10 is negative 4. It's going to be the square root of 16 equals negative 4. So 4 also does not equal negative 4, does it? So that's not a solution either. So what does that mean? That means I have no solution because neither one of those work. Okay, so you must check your answers, guys. Because you could have no solutions, you could have one of these work, you could have both of these work. So you have to check them, okay? All right, so our next one, it says rewrite the expression in exponential form. So this is going to be, this term right here is going to be y to the 8 over 3 because the index is the denominator times y to the 4 over 3. When we simplify this, when we have the same base, aren't we going to add the exponents? So that's going to be 8 plus 4 is 12. So that's going to be y is equal to 12 over 4, which reduces to be, 12 over 3. Sorry about that, y'all, because I'm dividing it by 3. I was jumping ahead in my mind. So this is 12 divided by 3, which is what? Y to the 4th. That's our answer. All right, so the last one says, given that b is equal to a squared times y, solve for a. So when we do a problem like this, I'm going to rewrite it. B is equal to a squared times y. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. So that's what we're going to do first. Divide by the y, because we got to get a by itself, right? So my next step down here is going to be b over y is equal to a squared. Now, how do I get rid of an a squared? We take the square root, right? So I'm going to take the square root of this, and I'm going to take the square root of this. So that's going to give me the square root of b over y is equal to a. And that's my answer.